dos olhos meus e a luz dos olhos teus resolvem se encontrar. Ai, que bom que isso é, meu Deus, que frio que me dá o encontro desse olhar. Mas se a luz dos olhos teus resiste aos olhos meus só pra me provocar, meu amor, juro por Deus, me sinto incendiar. Meu amor, juro por Deus que a luz dos olhos meus já não pode esperar. Quero a luz dos olhos meus na luz dos olhos teus sem mais lararará. Pela luz dos olhos teus eu acho meu amor e só se pode achar que a luz dos olhos meus precisa se casar.
The Rescue, Part 2. Alex was the squad leader and Kate the second in command. She had to learn how to be a soldier to survive, but fighting wasn't her strength. But Alex was the only one from them that was a real soldier before the break, and a good one. He was a deserter from Tandina. The break came when natural resources were so scarce that an international agreement was made between the richest nations on the planet to take control of the remaining, especially water. The reserves weren't obviously in their territory. The region was organized in 9 countries distributed in 4 continents interconnected by land forming almost a complete circle, with the Great Sea between them. This distribution remained for the past 120 years, when the boundaries were redefined to promote equality of rights and resources for all nations and cultures. However, while some countries prioritized their resources, others choose to develop new technologies or to make profit at any cost. Some cultures are open to exchange and others are too restricted. And in a very short time, the balance was lost. Savra at West was a single country, and even presenting differences in the culture of their people, they spoke the same language and had facilitated commerce between the provinces. Savra was ravaged by the madman disease, that was caused by a virus that affected the brain causing paranoia, followed by terrible hallucinations prior to internal bleeding and eventual death. The epidemic crisis was caused by their own mistake, through poor manipulation of biotechnology. The first mutations occurred between the survivors of several species, but around 85% of animal life and human population from that region died in the catastrophe. Tandina, in the north, was a very rich country, with an exemplary military force. They had a strong economy based on food production, plantations and animal farms, and exploration of minerals. They started to rescue the survivors from the west and took advantage of the situation by attaching West Territory extra-officially during the next 10 years that succeeded the epidemic. They were responsible for the discovery of the mutations and didn't take long before they explored the virus for different purposes, and the variant species they have created to become known by the public. Some refugees were smart enough to go south to hide, like Connor's mother. South was divided into 4 countries, Carissa, Narine, Senecio and Polygala. These nations' economy wasn't the richest of the world, but they had a very valuable culture and knowledge, especially in philosophy. The arts in general, music and local tribal languages were also very rich and appreciated. The major reservations of natural resources were concentrated there due to their preservation politics, and they had a remarkable diversity of groups and cultures amongst the natives. And the East started the break. The East was divided into 3 nations, all highly technologic with an elitist culture but different people and languages, Conarini, Pela and Garaida. They had very few natural resources left, so they had to import some reserves from other countries. Pela was a very closed country, with lots of restrictions on immigration and commerce, except for some limited business with the neighbors in the East. Conarini were responsible for most scientific advances of the world. Also, they created the chip which the military forces of the Alliance took advantage of. And Garaida was held accountable for generating the virus that caused the biological disaster which devastated the West. Garaida business in Savra regarding biological material wasn't officially recorded by the World Union, and that raised too many suspicions on the accident, leading their government to agree with high rates of restitution accorded in the Union meeting. The land in the southwest region is still dangerous to be inhabited, so they continue paying the north for rescue and sheltering the survivors, even being well-known rumors about test subjects with the madman virus. The break started with Conarini and Garaida attempting to attach the south to their territory, to increase their resources, and avoid further negotiations with other countries, keeping their scientific advances for themselves. They first established a partnership to conquer and divide the fertile territory at south, and their first action was diplomatic. The South rejected any motion to receive military or civil groups to manage the water reservoir and resources as petitioned in the Union, claiming that their politics of preservation were, obviously, the best in the world and there were no advantages in transferring the control to other countries. During the pretended negotiations, Tandina tried to establish cooperation with the East to also be able to access these resources, but Garaida government rushed to reject the proposal, alleging that Tandina already attached too many territories in the northwest and imposed that their money from the accident on Savra should be restituted, to be able to accept any further deals with the north. And their extreme controlling government combined with poor ability to do politics, diplomacy or negotiations with the North was what saved the South from imminent invasion. North and East started a conflict, and the military superiority of Tandina was enough to convince the until then neutral Pela to take their side. That allowed Tandina military forces to set temporary bases in their territory. Tandina performed one massive attack with power cells missiles from Pela that destroyed the south center of Garaida. That was enough for them to be occupied and attached to Tandina's territory, with an allegation of temporary reorganization of the country's government. Conarini tried to establish peace since Garaida spoke for itself, but Pela's condition in their agreement with Tandina was to control the remaining territories in the east, and Conarini ended up subjugated to Pela as well, without chance of parlor. It was fast and precise, determining the future of the world in a few intense weeks. Together Tandina and Pela took control of all territories of the world, except for the south. Thus, they opted to sign a pact, the Major Alliance. The agreement established the control of natural resources of the world by the alliance government, in Tandina, and determined the equal distribution of these reserves between Tandina, Pela, their new colonies, and the countries at south, Carissa, Narin, Senecio and Polygala. The agreement avoided immediate war, and the South had to provide 1/3 of their full resources. It was convenient for Tandina to not fight South, because their military forces were well known for the high-skilled people, great strategy, and high incidence of talented mutant volunteers, even the army being considerably smaller than North and East together. However, the alliance became an excuse for Tandina to expand their military bases all over the world and Pela to provide technology to improve their forces, infiltrating the South with an apparent disinterest. That's when the chips became a problem. The chips existed before the break, but they were supposed to heal mental and psychological illnesses and other disturbances, heal traumas and relieve post-traumatic stress. So, many people that had enough resources implanted the chips to improve their lives, unaware of the possibilities that the technology could be applied for. The patients continued acting normally, but the chip implanted happy memories to replace the traumatic events they have experienced, and, with time, people would start to replace some undesirable personality traits for more useful ones, deliberately. That was broadly condemned at first, until the perceptions of the prophet brought new perspectives to the scientific and medical field. First, they suggested that the chips could have been useful to treat people with madman disease, even not presenting enough results to be conclusive, changing the general opinion to something more friendly. And by the end, these procedures became plastic surgery for the brain. They were rarely necessary but allowed for whom that can afford it and wants to feel better with themselves. The break itself wasn't responsible for the recruitment. Although the Major Alliance didn't believe that they could have resistance, the chip was their solution to establish control over the occupied areas and the free world. They told people that they were going to be rescued from the refugees camps in the east, but they started being chipped and recruited instead. Then, they started to recruit openly and the volunteers from the south started joining the Alliance army. It took a couple years and too many innocent lives for the rebels to discover that those chips could control minds, and that the Alliance workforce were composed essentially by retrieved victims and unadvertised civils.
Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Check out our website to read more tales. www.foresttales.com